The blaring alarm echoed through the command center of the USS Valor, yanking me from the haze of my thoughts. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake off the fatigue that weighed on me like a lead blanket. Commander Reynolds, we're receiving a distress signal from the USS Endeavour. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell's voice cut through the commotion, her fingers flying over the console as she decoded the frantic transmission. Put it on the main screen, I ordered, my heart pounding. The screen flickered to life, revealing a haggard and desperate Captain Harris. Sweat glistened on his brow as he spoke, his voice edged with urgency. This is Captain Harris of the USS Endeavour. We've encountered a Zarian vessel demanding tribute. They've seized our cargo and are threatening to destroy us if we don't comply. My stomach twisted at the implications. The Zarthans, a ruthless alien race, feared across the sector. I had read the reports, but seeing the terror in Harris's eyes made the threat painfully real. What exactly are they demanding? I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Half our supplies, Commander. We won't survive long if we give in, Harris replied, his tone betraying his desperation. I clenched my jaw. Hold tight, Captain. We're on our way. Ending the transmission, I turned to Sarah, who was already analyzing the enemy ship's schematics. What do we know about their technology? I asked. Advanced propulsion systems, highly maneuverable. Their weaponry is superior, plasma cannons capable of slicing through our hull like butter, she reported, her brows furrowed in concentration. But we might have the advantage in numbers if we act quickly. Gather the fleet for an emergency meeting, I instructed, my mind racing. The crew needed to grasp the gravity of the situation. As we moved to the briefing room, an eerie silence settled over the command center. The air felt thick with tension, every crew member keenly aware of the stakes. Officers filed in, their eyes fixed on me, waiting for direction. Listen up, everyone, I began, my voice firm yet urgent. The Endeavour is under threat from a Zarthan ship demanding tribute, demands we cannot and will not accept. A murmur rippled through the room. Lieutenant Johnson, a seasoned pilot, crossed his arms. Commander, with all due respect, confronting the Zarthans head-on could be suicide. They're not known for mercy. I met his gaze. I understand the risks, Lieutenant. But if we let them strong-arm us, we send a message that humanity is weak. That is not a message I'm willing to send. Sarah interjected, cutting through the murmurs. We need a plan. If we engage them, we must be prepared for anything. The room fell silent again, the weight of her words sinking in. She's right, I conceded. We need intelligence on their capabilities and a solid strategy. I want every available ship ready for potential confrontation. As the meeting progressed, I could see both determination and fear in their eyes. It was a precarious balance, one that could shift at any moment. We've faced challenges before, I reminded them. But this time, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for humanity's future among the stars. When the meeting concluded, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, but the weight of the impending battle loomed large. As I stepped into the corridor, Sarah fell in beside me. Do you think we're ready for this? She asked in a hushed voice. I exhaled slowly. I hope so. But we'll need every ounce of resolve we have. The Zarthans won't go down easily. As we moved through the ship, tension hung in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the storm gathering just beyond our reach. Whatever came next, we would face it together, united against a common enemy. Back on the bridge of the USS Valor, I stared into the endless void of space. The hum of the ship's engines was a constant reminder of our mission, but the unease was palpable. Commander Mark Reynolds stood at the forefront, his presence commanding attention. Listen up, Reynolds' voice rang out, silencing the murmurs. He stood tall, his uniform crisp, embodying authority amid the uncertainty. We've spent too long bowing to the Zarthans' demands. It's time to strike back. We will not let them dictate our fate. I exchanged glances with the tactical officers, reading the mix of apprehension and determination on their faces. We had trained for this moment, but the reality of war was another beast entirely. First, we consolidate our fleet and orbit around Mars, Reynolds continued, sweeping his gaze across the room. From there, we launch a coordinated strike on their supply lines. They think they can intimidate us. We will show them the strength of the United Earth Space Fleet. The room buzzed with murmurs as the crew processed the enormity of the plan. Adrenaline surged through me. We were finally taking the fight to them. Yet beneath my resolve, anxiety gnawed at the edges of my mind. The Zarthans were ruthless, and their true capabilities remained largely unknown. As preparations began, I found myself in the hangar bay, watching pilots undergo intense training. The tension was thick, their movements sharp but laced with an undercurrent of fear. I approached a group of them, determined to bolster their spirits. "All right, listen up," I said, my voice steady. "We've trained for this. We've prepared for this. And when the time comes, we'll show them exactly why humanity should never be underestimated." Their eyes burned with determination, their fear slowly being replaced by resolve. The battle ahead would test us all, but one thing was certain: humanity would not back down. As I called out, forcing a smile, I knew this wasn't easy, but we were in this together. We had trained hard, and now it was time to show the Zarthans what we were made of. Jake, one of the younger pilots, looked up from his pre-flight checks, uncertainty in his eyes. "What if we're outmatched? They've got advanced tech, and we're just us." I placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "We've got something they don't, Hart. We fight for our freedom, our families, and each other. That's our advantage. Fear can't dictate our actions. We have to trust our training and each other." The pilots nodded, some still unsure, but I had to try. As days passed in a blur of preparation, training, and strategy sessions, tension gripped the crew when we intercepted a Zarthan transmission. A massive fleet was en route to Earth. The weight of what was coming sent a shockwave of fear through us. In the command center, Commander Mark Reynolds stood at the forefront, his expression grim. "This changes everything," he said. "We can't wait for them to reach Earth. If they do, they'll demand tribute from innocent people, our families, our friends. We will not let that happen." His determination was infectious, igniting a fire in our fellow officers. "What's the plan, Commander?" I asked, steady despite the turmoil inside. "We launch a preemptive strike," he declared. "Hit them hard, disrupt their communications, and show them we won't be intimidated." The USS Valor buzzed with tension as we prepared for battle. My heart pounded, but I focused, exchanging glances with Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, my tactical officer, who analyzed the enemy patrol patterns. "If we strike now, we can catch them off guard. Their defenses are weaker on the outer edges," she said. "Then let's take advantage of that," Reynolds replied. "Sarah, you'll handle hacking. If you breach their network, we can gain intel on their weapons, shields, everything." Determination flashed in her eyes. "I'm on it, Commander. I'll find a way in." As we moved into position, the deep hum of the engines resonated through the ship, steadying my nerves. "All systems ready," the operations officer confirmed. "We're set to go." I inhaled sharply, grounding myself. "On my mark," Reynolds commanded, his gaze locked on the enemy patrol ship. 3, 2, 1. Engage. The Valor surged forward, plunging into chaos as alarms blared. "Locking weapon systems," I called, fingers flying across the controls. "Target their engines." "Fire," Reynolds commanded. The ship shuddered as our energy beams streaked through the void, slamming into the enemy vessel, illuminating the darkness of space. The Zarthans retaliated, their blasts rocking the Valor. "Shields holding at 70%. I reported, barely audible over the alarms. "Sarah, now!" Reynolds shouted. Sarah, eyes locked on her console, worked furiously. "I'm in," she announced triumphantly. "Disabling their weapon systems now." "Good work, keep us updated," Reynolds ordered. The battle raged, the Valor weaving through energy blasts, firepower clashing in the abyss. We had struck first, but the war was far from over. "They're panicking. We've got them on the run." I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. Just as victory seemed within our grasp, an alarm blared through the ship. "Reinforcements incoming," Sarah warned, her expression shifting from confidence to alarm. "They've called for backup. We need to retreat." "Not yet," Reynolds barked, his jaw set. "We can't give them the chance to regroup. Keep firing." I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to follow Sarah's advice. "Commander, if we don't pull back now, we'll be overwhelmed." Before he could respond, the Zarian launched a brutal counterattack, their reinforcements emerging like shadows from the depths of space. The Valor shook violently as enemy fire rained down on us. "Shields at 30%. I shouted, panic creeping into my voice. "Divert power from non-essential systems to shields." Reynolds ordered, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. "Too late." Sarah yelled, her voice strained. "They're hitting us hard." Suddenly, a jarring explosion rocked the ship, alarms screaming in protest. I was thrown against my console, pain shooting through my body. "Damage report." Reynolds bellowed, struggling to regain his footing. "Main reactor compromised. We're losing power." I gasped, the chaos around me blurring into a haze as the crew scrambled to regain control. A heavy silence settled over me. We had fought bravely, but the brutal counterattack had left us devastated. My heart sank as I realized the cost of our resolve. I looked at Sarah, whose eyes mirrored my own shock and disbelief. We had taken the first step toward fighting back, but at what price? The weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our fight had only just begun. I stood on the bridge of the USS Valor, the hum of the ship's engines vibrating through my body. The screen in front of me displayed the vastness of space, a canvas dotted with stars that felt increasingly distant. Commander Reynolds paced back and forth, his expression a mix of determination and anxiety. We were about to execute a plan that felt as risky as it was necessary, a desperate gamble to turn the tide against the Zarthan menace. "Lieutenant Mitchell, are you ready?" he asked, stopping to face me. His eyes bore into mine, searching for reassurance. I took a deep breath, trying to mask the anxiety twisting in my stomach. "Yes, sir. The decoy ship is prepped and on course. We'll draw them in just like you ordered." Reynolds nodded, but the tension in the air was palpable. Every officer on the bridge was acutely aware that this mission could mean victory or annihilation. As I glanced at the tactical displays, my fingers danced over the controls, running final checks. "We need to make sure the Zarthans believe this decoy is a prime target," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "If they see it as vulnerable, they'll bite." Reynolds raised an eyebrow, a smirk briefly flickering across his face. "Just make sure it doesn't become a buffet for them. We need them to think they're getting a feast." I chuckled lightly, but my heart raced. I watched as the decoy ship, the USS Endeavour, drifted away from our formation, its hull shimmering under the distant starlight. It was a sitting duck, and we were hoping the Zarthans wouldn't notice the trap until it was too late. As the minutes ticked by, I felt a nagging sense of dread. My instincts told me something was off, but I pushed it aside. The mission had to succeed. When the time came, I was ready to execute the plan, ready to send the Zarthans a message they wouldn't forget. Just then, an alert blared through the bridge. I turned to the monitor, my heart sinking. "Commander, we're receiving a Zarthan transmission. It's encrypted, but I think I can break it." "Do it," Reynolds ordered, his voice sharp. I focused on the screen, typing furiously, the rhythm of my heartbeat matching the beeping of the console. Suddenly, the message decrypted, revealing a shocking protocol. My mind raced as I processed the implications. "Commander, the Zarthans, their tribute system isn't just about power. They're harvesting human DNA. It's a cover for something much darker." Reynolds' expression hardened. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. This is a matter of survival for them. They're using us to fight their own extinction," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of the revelation settled heavily on my shoulders. Before we could discuss further, the Zarthan fleet appeared on the monitors, closing in on the decoy ship. "They're taking the bait!" I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. "Prepare for engagement," Reynolds commanded. "We can't let them get away with this." As the Valor maneuvered into position, chaos erupted. The Zarthans were ready, launching a full-scale attack on the decoy ship. The screens lit up with explosions as the Endeavor was bombarded. My stomach twisted as I watched the decoy take hit after hit, its hull buckling under the assault. "Commander, we need to initiate our plan now," I yelled, desperation filling my voice. Reynolds didn't hesitate. "All ships, open fire! Give them hell!" The Valor erupted with energy, firing at the Zarthan ships. I felt the ship lurch as we engaged, my hands gripping the console tightly. We unleashed a barrage of missiles, the lights flashing like lightning in the darkness of space. But the Zarthans were fierce. They retaliated with a ferocity I hadn't anticipated. I could see the destruction unfolding on the screens, our own ships taking heavy damage, the dark void of space filling with debris and sparks. "Status," Reynolds shouted amid the chaos. "Heavy casualties, sir. The decoy ship is..." I began to speak, but my voice faltered as the screen displayed the final moments of the Endeavor. It erupted in a brilliant flash, fragments scattering into the abyss. A heavy silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the wailing alarms in the background. The weight of our loss crashed over me like a tidal wave. "Commander, we need to regroup. We can't sustain this fight," I urged, my voice trembling. Reynolds stood frozen, his eyes locked on the screen where the decoy ship had been. The realization of what we had just lost began to dawn on him. "We fight until the end," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. What had we done in our desperation to fight back? We had already lost so much. As the Zarthan ships advanced, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to pay an even higher price. The wreckage of battle surrounded us, a cruel reminder of the cost we had incurred in our desperate gamble against the Zarthans. Flickering lights from damaged systems cast an eerie glow over the command center of the USS Valor. My heart pounded as Commander Reynolds and I moved through the debris, our minds still reeling from the chaos that had unfolded. "Sarah, over here!" Reynolds called, pointing to a crumpled escape pod, partially buried under the remnants of a destroyed Zarthan cruiser. Adrenaline coursing through my veins, I hurried to his side. The pod's hatch was slightly ajar, and a low, pained groan came from within. I exchanged a glance with Reynolds, a silent agreement passing between us. We needed answers, and if there was a survivor inside, we had to find out what they knew. Together, we pried the hatch open wider, revealing a Zarthan. Its mottled green skin glistened under the dim light, its wide eyes filled with fear. "Please," it rasped, struggling to speak. I mean no harm." "Easy," I said, kneeling beside it. "We're not going to hurt you. Just tell us what you know." The Zarthan's breaths came in ragged gasps, its elongated fingers trembling as it struggled to sit up. "You don't understand, our people, we are dying. The tribute, it is not about domination. It is about survival." Reynolds and I exchanged a look, confusion etched on our faces. "Survival?" Reynolds echoed, his voice lowering. "Explain." The creature nodded slowly, its gaze darting around as if expecting an attack at any moment. "Our planet is ravaged, resources depleted. The tribute, it is a means to gather what we need to sustain our civilization. We do not wish to fight, we are desperate." A pang of something, sympathy, perhaps, stirred within me as I studied the Zarthan's frail form. "So you're saying this was all a misunderstanding? That we were just in the wrong place at the wrong time?" I pressed, trying to grasp the weight of its words. "Yes," it whispered. "We have lost so many. Our leaders made choices out of fear. We thought if we could extract what we needed from you, we could save ourselves. It paused, its eyes shimmering with unshed tears. But it has only brought us all to the brink of destruction. Reynolds stood silent, the weight of this revelation pressing down on him. So you're telling me, he said at last, his voice tight with emotion, that the deaths of my crew, the destruction we've caused, all of it was for your survival? Yes, the Zarthan admitted, its voice barely above a whisper. But we never meant to provoke you. We thought you would understand. I could see Reynolds struggling with the implications, the moral dilemma hanging heavily in the air between us. What do you suggest we do now? He asked, his voice calmer but still tinged with anger. Stop the fight. Join together. We can help each other, we can find a way to sustain both our peoples. The Zarthan's voice was weakening, its strength fading alongside its hope. Commander, I interjected, urgency creeping into my tone. If we could broker some sort of peace, it could change everything. We could stop the cycle of violence. Reynolds rubbed his temples, deep in thought. But can we trust them? How do we know this isn't just a ploy? Because we have already lost so much. The Zarthan gasped. If you kill me, you will lose even more. Silence settled over us, heavy and suffocating. I could see Reynolds wrestling with the idea, understanding over vengeance, the possibility of finding a way out of the darkness we had plunged into. All right, he finally said, his expression hardening with determination. We will consider your offer. But know this, if you betray us, I will not hesitate to end this. Thank you. The Zarthan breathed, its eyes closing as it lost consciousness. Hope and dread warred within me. Could we truly forge a path forward, or were we simply delaying the inevitable? Outside the Valor, the stars twinkled serenely, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within the hearts of two races on the brink of annihilation. The command center was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of the consoles and the distant rumble of ship engines. The weight of the moment pressed against my chest. Commander Mark Reynolds stood at the forefront, his expression a mixture of resolve and anguish. After everything we had witnessed, the bloodshed, the loss, he was about to make a decision that could change the course of our existence. Lieutenant Mitchell, he called, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around us. Prepare a transmission to the Zarthans. I want to propose a ceasefire. I blinked, taken aback. A ceasefire, sir? After everything they've done? The faces of my fallen crewmates flashed before my eyes. Their laughter, their voices, now replaced with silence. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. Reynolds gestured toward the viewport, where the remnants of the battlefield floated like a graveyard of steel and shattered dreams. If we can show them that we're willing to negotiate, we might find a way to end this madness. I hesitated, doubt battling the flicker of hope his words ignited. What if they see it as weakness? They could take advantage of us. Reynolds met my gaze, his blue eyes piercing through the fog of uncertainty. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. Right now, we need to try something different. After a deep breath, I nodded. All right, sir. Initiating transmission. As I pressed the button, my heart pounded. Reynolds' voice filled the comms. This is Commander Mark Reynolds of the United States Space Fleet. We propose a ceasefire. Let us speak as equals, rather than enemies. For a moment, only static answered. Then, the Zarthan communication channel crackled to life. This is Zarthan Commander Rex. Your proposal is unexpected. Before Reynolds could respond, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. My stomach clenched as the screen lit up with incoming target locks. Sir, we're being targeted. I shouted. It's a rogue faction within their fleet. Reynolds barely had time to react before the ship shook violently under enemy fire. Chaos erupted around us as explosions lit up the void. I watched in horror as the USS Valor was caught in the crossfire, engulfed in flames. No! I screamed as the ship, our home, became a fiery tomb. We had fought for survival, but what had it all come to? Amidst the wreckage, I stood in the remnants of our ambitions, our dreams shattered. The stars bore silent witness to our tragedy, and I could only wonder, Had we ever been meant to reach for them?